We have got some huge Chrono Odyssey news, we have some gameplay footage and more. So let's jump in and let's talk about it. Basically, the Chrono Odyssey devs have posted what they're dubbing an interview, but it's literally one guy 90% talking with another guy occasionally getting involved. But what they tell us is interesting, and what they show us perhaps even more interesting. They actually show us gameplay and actual in-game footage, and it looks fantastic. They talk about how the world was basically inspired by the horror vibe of Prometheus, as well as the Zerg from StarCraft creating the Void, and how they've involved time manipulation. Either way, what they have created here, this dark horror universe, I've got to tell you, I am a big fan of. I think it looks great, and all of the gameplay footage looks immaculate. Really, really good. They also talk about what effectively sets Chrono Odyssey apart, how there's going to be open-ended progression. That sense of exploration is going to be there. You can go ahead and just do anything in pretty much any order you like and still feel like you are progressing. They spoke about how they actually want the leveling progression and the leveling content to feel similar to the end game content and progression. A lot of MMOs have struggled with that in the past, and sometimes it feels like two completely different games. They're trying to achieve a result that doesn't feel like that. The combat does look like action combat. Everything looks good with it. It looks crisp. It looks clean. They do have that thing with the animations where there's like a frame where it sort of freezes, but that's intentional to like emphasize the hit. Some people don't like that. Some people do like it. I think it looks good here. They reveal some information about the classes and the combat beyond just showing us some of the footage. For example, the classes are going to be 6 different classes, obviously, but they're trying to move a little bit of away from the Holy Trinity. However, they are going to have healers, tanks, and DPSs. So what's the deal there? Well, what they're actually going to have is a hybrid class or hybrid classes. Instead of a healer just being a healer and not being able to do anything else, you'll probably have a class that can heal, but can be just as good at DPS. You might even have a class that can do all 3. I doubt every class will be able to do everything, but having classes be able to do multiple roles and switch between them relatively easily might work very well. But how are they going to do that? Well, I suspect this is going to be the weapon system. So what they said is that every class is going to be able to wield 2 weapons, and you will switch between these weapons to create combos, to create gameplay interactions that wouldn't be possible with different weapons, obviously. And the switching between them is going to be important. In fact, there's going to be a boss early on where I think it's pretty imperative that you do it. And this will be something that you do throughout the game, even in the end game. It's not like they want you to stick with one weapon and just play it. There will be 2. And you can kind of think about that like New World. New World has that system, except it doesn't have classes, but you have 2 weapons that you pick between, and you tend to switch between them to achieve maximum effectiveness. How many weapons can you pick between? Well, that I don't know. We can assume it's 3 or more. And I suspect it's these weapons that will then determine the role of that class. I mean, the Paladin, for example, could in theory be a tank, a DPS, and a healer. And maybe it's the weapon choice that actually picks that. I would say that would seem likely given what we've just been told there. So the hybrid classes is the solution to the Holy Trinity, but it sort of sounds like we're having a Holy Trinity. Okay, cool. Looks good. Also worth noting though is that it doesn't seem like there's going to be a shed ton of abilities. This isn't like games like Ion or World of Warcraft and stuff like that where you have like 5 different bars or with 12 abilities on them or something like that. This is going to be a pared down amount. If I'm honest, you can probably tell in the footage how many there are, but there won't be very many. The UI is very sort of clean, and they're aiming here for an easy to learn, hard to master kind of vibe. Great, a lot of people like that. The combat in my eyes is looking pretty tasty. I really like the look of it. I'm an action combat Andy, and that appears to be what we're getting right here. They also talk about the content in the game and what you can expect. Overall, the game is going to be focused more towards smaller scale gameplay. You shouldn't really expect mass PvP in the hundreds via hundreds or anything like that. And if there are going to be raids, they're not going to be 100-person raids, I guess, right? Most of the content is going to be solo focused or groups of around about 5. And that will actually be the case all the way until the end game. As for the content though, there is quite a variety of content. They spoke about how if you want to, you can progress just by being a gatherer crafter, which I typically may have a bit of an aversion to because in New World, you could sort of do that, and it turned out that the best gear was often behind that, which led to a variety of different issues of like not doing content because there was no reason to do the content, and also RMT. So we'll see how that pans out. Okay, as for the content though, there's some small scale like solo content and there's some small scale group content. Your single player content is, I think, the gates, the trials, and the labyrinths. labyrinthi, but there's going to be group content like dungeons, the region bosses. I think maybe the time portals, although maybe they're solo. I didn't quite pick up on that necessarily. We'll talk more about PvP in a second. So the chrono gates are basically going to be where you fight against an individual boss, it sounds like. Should be a bit of like challenging content there. The trials are puzzles and random mechanics and that kind of jazz, we think. The labyrinths are also puzzles, but they seem to be more like mazes. I think the trials are going to be like a series of events that you do, because I think I remember reading that on the website. And the labyrinths, I think, is like this one kind of look like a sci-fi cube-esque world where you go through and it's effectively like a maze and there's rewards at the end. I think they're both single player content, for example. As for the group content, of course, you're going to have your standard dungeons. I'm pretty sure they mentioned 3 people for a dungeon, which is an interesting one. I wonder if you can literally just take 5 of you and blast through it. Maybe you'll get less rewards. Maybe it'll be better. Who knows? Sounds like you will need a Holy Trinity in a dungeon though, which is basically just one class, I guess, being like, I'll tank and I'll heal. The goal here is to keep them small scale and tactical though. There will be bigger content like open world bosses, which they call field bosses, though you're going to need a big group. There's a couple that I'm not 100% sure if they're group or solo play. The time portals, I'm not sure if that was mentioned as being solo or group content. I watched the subtitles on the video. I also translated it. I translated the Korean as well to see if we could pick up any information. Not 100% sure if the time portals are group content or not. And the bounty hunting system may be both as well. But the bounty hunting system is going to be like, have a wanted poster, go find that guy, go kill that guy. The time portals, I'm not sure what they are. Sort of look like dungeons, but who knows. We do, however, have to talk about PvP. And there's a little bit of a dagger in my heart when they mentioned this. They said there's no mass PvP, no realm v realm, all that kind of stuff, right? Which I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I think action combat probably that won't work necessarily that well. But they also used the phrase no arena combat. Now I'm hoping they mean more like battlegrounds there. I'm hoping they mean there's not going to be like 20v20 or 30v30 or something like that. I would love to see actual arena gameplay like 3v3, 2v2, 4v4, 5v5, whatever you pick, right? Something like that would be really fun in my eyes. But for now, they said no. What they're actually going to focus on is this PvE versus PvP thing, PvEVP. Now, I've run this through ChatGPT and it talks about how there's going to be instances to trigger this. Maybe small groups will go around the world triggering it in various different ways. Might be the world bosses. It might be other content. We're not really sure how that's going to pay off right now. I've seen somebody say that you can actually flag up, but I don't actually think that's in this video, so I don't know if that's true or not. Either way, I'm personally hoping for an arena. Like, I just want like a 3v3 and then eventually a battleground. You do that, I'm completely set with that. I mean, I've been doing that in New World for like 4 years and I still enjoyed it. So I'll enjoy it in this one if they add it. But I also like this idea of a small group PvP that you can sort of trigger and choose when you want to do it and if you want to do it. As for the progression is going to be very interesting. As I mentioned earlier, you can progress just by being a gatherer crafter, and whilst I do have some concerns about that, I think it's going to be a very interesting system. You can also progress assumingly through, you know, solo content and group-based killing, dungeon mobs and that kind of stuff. And then there's one where I think some of you are going to like hold your breath and your balls are going to clench and everything. And that is a honing / enhancement system. This is going to be a system where you take your existing items and you make them stronger and more powerful and you dominate. Now, why is your butt cheeks clenching there? Well, that's because this is typically where pay to win is found in most Korean MMOs. Your honing is your classic pay to win catch all. Now, they didn't mention pay to win. They didn't mention the business model. They didn't mention anything about it. I'm going to assume a little bit of pay to win until we see it. They say no pay to win. Everybody expects a Korean game with Kakao publishing it to be massive pay to win. I'm kind of expecting somewhere maybe in the middle. I think actually they're aiming for not that much pay to win because they tell their investors, no, we're not doing pay to win. And they're aiming at a global audience. So I can sort of believe it, but I'm just being naive. We'll see though. I don't want to judge it too much until we see. The honing system, the enhancing system, whatever it's called, that, if it's going to be anywhere, that's where we need to focus. I'd be very interested in a system like that doesn't actually have pay to win behind it though. So yeah, let's see if it's actually good. They did mention about the closed beta test. They sort of said, don't expect a fully polished game here, which makes sense because the game's not out, right? The closed beta test is not the release, so don't expect it to be the release. They want to take your feedback, implement your feedback, and they also want to test, I think, the server infrastructure is going to be important here. It's kind of like that phrase, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. They may have a plan for their servers, but the minute they see thousands of people on the server, maybe they'll have to rethink a few things. They did say, though, just go ahead and explore. In fact, you don't even necessarily have to, you know, follow the main quest or anything. They want you to just have free reign, go at your own pace, see what you like, do what you want, and enjoy it. For my take, Chrono Odyssey could be a refreshing change in this genre. It could be a really good Korean MMO that takes off in the West, and they also talk about that when it launches, that's not the end. They will do more classes, more regions, and stuff like that. This is a game that I believe in right now. I hope they deliver, because my excitement is possibly getting too high. I'm on that hype train, and I'm either going to crash into a brick wall or hit Nirvana. Probably somewhere in between. Let me know your thoughts. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.